South Korea's very own space rocket Nuri has safely made it into orbit on its first ever actual mission, proving the country's capabilities for space transportation in the new space era. And the mission of the main satellite of the 8 that Nuri took into orbit is well underway, maintaining stable communication with Earth. Scientists are still searching for signals from 3 satellites. The South Korean inspection team that visited the Fukushima nuclear power plant will return to Seoul today after their 6-day trip to Japan. In the meantime, the Korean government is trying its best to allay public concerns about seafood being exposed to radioactivity.
엔진 점화 26 우료가 발사되었습니다.
We begin this afternoon with the latest on the Nuri rocket launch. After making it into orbit, Nuri's main satellite has sent signals that its mission is well going smoothly.
On the day of the launch at around 7:58 yesterday, the initial communication with the Next Generation Satellite 2 was successfully made at the first attempt, followed by 7 additional communications at dawn today. Also, we have checked and confirmed that the functions of the satellite, including the transmission and reception system, command and data processing system, and the power generation system of the solar panel are all operating normally.
As for the remaining satellites, the general director said they had successful communications with 2 out of 4 CUBE satellites developed by Korea Astronomy and Space Science Institute and 2 out of the 3 CUBE satellites developed by the startups. For the 3 satellites that they haven't managed to communicate with, the Director General said, given the characteristics of the CUBE satellites, it could take a few days for the communications to be made. And the country is still on a high over the successful Nuri launch on Thursday. Our Lee Kyung-un looks back on the milestone.
3, 2, 엔진 점화 26
Using South Korean technology by South Korean researchers and launching from South Korean soil. At 6:24 p.m. Thursday, South Korea's first homegrown space rocket, Nuri, blasted off from Nuri Space Center at the country's southern tip. Following 2 test flights, Nuri this time took on his first actual mission to put 8 working satellites into orbit, which was key to determining the success of this flight. And 13 minutes and 3 seconds into the flight, Nuri reached its target altitude of 550 kilometers when it released the satellites at 20-second intervals.
South Korea's domestically developed spacecraft Nuri has successfully completed its 3rd launch with the support of the public.
The primary goal was sending the main satellite, the Next Generation Small Satellite 2, into an orbit where it could always make use of solar energy to operate in generating images of the Earth. That main satellite was confirmed to have successfully separated and be communicating with the ground. All the other CUBE satellites on board were subsequently separated, except for one whose status is still being verified. Yet it is a solid success.
We believe it is a success given that Nuri entered the target orbit and the main satellite was safely separated.
The milestone achievement came after Wednesday's initial launch was called off due to technical glitch in the software controlling the helium valve. But the next attempt was swiftly made with problems sorted while Nuri remained in position. That's different from the second launch when a hardware glitch caused a delay, prompting Nuri's transportation back to the assembly center. Thursday's launch was designed as South Korea's first attempt to launch a commercial satellite via domestically developed spacecraft. It is also the first time Hanwha Aerospace jointly manufactured the Nuri rocket. Hanwha Aerospace will lead 3 more launches by 2027, opening the era of South Korea's private-led space endeavors. With the success of the third launch, South Korea takes a step further to building more reliability and confidence in space launch vehicles or providing commercial services tailored for satellites. 이경은, 아리랑 뉴스, 고흥.
And President Yoon also congratulated all involved and said South Korea had now declared itself among the top nations in aerospace development.
정말 벅차고 그리고 이 우주 과학이 모든 산업의 선도 역할을 하는 것인 만큼 이제 전 세계에서 우리 대한민국의 첨단 과학 기술을 바라보는 눈이 저는 이번에 확 바뀔 거라고 생각합니다.
He added that he believes from now, countries deemed ahead of South Korean space programs will be reaching out to cooperate and share information. He also highlighted the significance of the delivery of functioning satellites into orbit and acknowledged that 3 of those satellites have been made by startups. Taking to social media, the president called on the younger generations to take motivation from Nuri's launch and promised to make a country where they can work toward their dreams. And foreign media outlets had also all had a lot to say about the Nuri launch, saying that it boosted South Korea's hopes of catching up with nearby countries in the regional space race. Bae-eun-ji has more.
News outlets across the globe assess that Nuri's successful delivery of satellites into space marked a significant milestone in the country's space program. The Associated Press said the launch boosted South Korea's hopes of catching up with Asian neighbors, such as China, Japan, and India, in a regional space race. It also added that many experts say Thursday's launch will also help the country accumulate technologies needed to operate spy satellites and build long-range missiles. Reuters also called the success a breakthrough in South Korea's ambitions to compete in the space race with its Asian neighbors, and said Nuri is central to the country's ambitious plan to boost progress in 6G networks, spy satellites, and even lunar probes. Meanwhile, Bloomberg said that the mission shows South Korea has the ability to send satellites into orbit from a homegrown space vehicle, as previous launches used rockets from other countries. It also mentioned that Nuri is about 12 stories high, slightly smaller than France's Ariane 5 rocket. And France's international news agency AFP mentioned that more than 200,000 viewers watched the live stream of the launch on YouTube. Al Jazeera, the international news network of Qatar, also reported the 3-stage rocket is South Korea's first domestically built space launch vehicle, using only South Korean rocket technology, and that 3 more flights are expected by 2027. Bae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
Now, Thursday's Nuri launch was more than just another rocket launch. Nuri could become the key to solving some of the mysterious of the universe and could help protect our planet. Our Kim Jung-sil has the story.
Former KARI president and veteran rocket scientist Dr. Choi Hyun-suk shared his feelings as he watched Nuri's successful third launch on Thursday evening.
As a person who, in a way, has planted the seeds for South Korea's liquid rocket engine development, I feel extremely elated and am very, very proud of the younger scientists.
Dr. Choi also expressed his hopes for the satellites that Nuri carried into space, saying the information they gather could play a key role in tackling environmental issues here on Earth.
These satellites will gather information through topographical observation, resource observation, as well as getting details on marine pollution. These new findings can then be sent to other countries that are suffering from environmental issues, which will be beneficial for the Earth's environment.
The former KARI chief also gave us his thoughts on what the future holds for South Korea's rocket science technology.
If I mention the already confirmed plans, from later this year, a space launch vehicle that's twice or 3 times more competent than Nuri will start to be developed over the next 10 years. That space launch vehicle will have the capacity to send a spaceship that's around 5 tons in weight, or send one that's 1 ton to Mars.
He said more exciting findings could be made in the future, helping solve some of the universe's untold mysteries. 김정실, 아리랑 뉴스.
The 6-day visit to the Fukushima nuclear power plant by South Korean inspection team has come to an end. All eyes are now on the results of their findings, which the team says will be announced as soon as possible. Lee Seung-jae reports.
After their 2-day on-site inspection of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, South Korea's 21-member inspection team held a meeting with Japanese officials as part of their final itinerary on Thursday. One of the key things the team inspected was the plant's power supply to see how the facilities would cope with unexpected events such as earthquakes and tsunamis. They also requested any further information the Japanese officials could provide for them, as the South Korean side stressed that significant progress could be made in evaluating safety with as much information as possible made available. With the team returning to Korea on Friday, the head of the delegation, Yoo Ki, said that a comprehensive evaluation will be made after further analysis of their inspection, and the results will be announced as soon as possible. Despite the inspection, South Koreans are still very much concerned about the planned release of contaminated water stored at the facility and how it will impact seafood originating in Japan. While seafood from Fukushima is still banned, imports of Japanese fishery products from other regions are steadily increasing, with imports of scallops, sea bream, and pollock on the rise. The Ministry of Food and Drug Safety has been inspecting all fishery products coming in from Japan, with 5 cases in which trace amounts of radioactivity were detected and returned since 2011. While the South Korean government is doing all it can to reassure South Korean consumers through transparent inspections, concerns may rise even more once the wastewater is eventually released into the ocean. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The presidential office says there has been no change in South Korea's policy of sending only non-lethal aid to Ukraine, following U.S. media speculation that Seoul is ready to send hundreds of thousands of artillery shells to Ukraine via the U.S. Our top office correspondent Oh Soo-young has more.
Is South Korea changing its policy of only sending non-lethal aid to Ukraine? The presidential office says no, denying a Wall Street Journal report that a policy turnabout is already underway. In response to the US publication's claim that Seoul is proceeding with a confidential deal to supply Washington with hundreds of thousands of rounds of artillery that would end up in Ukraine. South Korean officials have been quick to insist that Seoul is not giving direct military support to Kyiv.
There are inaccuracies in the content of the report. As you know, the international community is providing support to keep peace and stability in Ukraine against Russia's illegal aggression.
The Defense Ministry spokesperson said he cannot discuss every single detail of Seoul's arms deal talks with Washington, but that the government will take appropriate measures upon reviewing the situation in Ukraine. Earlier media reports had said amid discussions on supporting Ukraine, South Korea was planning to lend 500,000 rounds of 155mm shells to the United States. But Seoul officials have been concerned that sending weapons or ammunition to Kyiv could antagonize Moscow. Russia last month threatened to deliver arms to North Korea as a quid pro quo if South Korea sent weapons to Ukraine. Those threats came after President Yoon suggested he may have to broaden support for Kyiv if Moscow commits large-scale atrocities or breaks the international rules of war. His office has since clarified that Seoul maintains its non-lethal mode of assistance. On Wednesday, Yoon's national security advisor Cho Tae-yong told lawmakers Seoul has until now sent humanitarian and financial assistance to Kyiv. There is no ammunition being sent to Ukraine directly or indirectly through Poland, he said, responding to a question about the possibility of sending arms via Poland or the US. A senior presidential aide to President Yoon told reporters Thursday that the top office has previously stated its position on support for Ukraine, and that position remains unchanged. It also claimed Japanese media reports that Yoon may visit Ukraine in July were inaccurate. After meeting Volodymyr Zelensky in Hiroshima on Sunday, the South Korean leader said Seoul would actively review delivering mine removal equipment and evacuation vehicles. Yoon's office says Kyiv only requested non-lethal aid last week when Zelensky's wife visited the South Korean leader as a special envoy to her husband. Seoul, Arirang News.
North Korea has been reportedly sending out phishing mails to South Koreans, the majority of them impersonating managers of major websites such as Naver and Kakao. Our Lee Dae-hyun has this report.
North Korea appears to have been impersonating the managers of major South Korean portal websites as part of an organized email phishing scam. Statistics released by the National Intelligence Service on Thursday show that the sending of phishing email was Pyongyang's most common hacking method from 2020 to 2022, accounting for 74% of such attacks. 68% of the hacking emails were reportedly found to be impersonating South Korea's major websites, Naver and Kakao, followed by financial institutes and media and foreign affairs and national security institutes. North Korean cyber scammers would send fraudulent emails pretending to be website managers in the hope of making the user download malware or hack personal account information through those emails. They also sent emails saying there's a problem with the targeted user's account security, duping users into clicking links. Other hacking methods include attacking vulnerabilities in security software programs and luring a targeted group into infected dummy websites. The National Intelligence Service, after releasing the report, also introduced ways to avoid these email phishing scams. They suggested people check email icons as emails from website managers use different ones from hackers. Email addresses, too, are slightly different, so checking spelling is recommended. The agency also said to put a cursor on a link before clicking it so that it can show a preview of a website, which may help people to distinguish whether it's an authentic link or not.
There are a lot of programs in web browsers like Chrome where phishing emails are blocked, as there are many cases of cyber attackers impersonating website domains. Using these programs may help you.
The National Intelligence Service also said victims of cyber attacks are now being expanded from national security officials to students and office workers, warning all internet users to be cautious. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
The annual government meeting to discuss electricity demand and supply for the summer season has been scheduled for a week earlier than in 2022, due to the possibility of peak demand hitting earlier this year. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy announced Friday that they'll be holding the meeting on June 26th to accommodate changing weather conditions. In years past, peak electricity demand hit in the second week of August, but last year it peaked on July 7th. The Korea Meteorological Administration gave their predictions for a hot summer this year on Tuesday, reflected by the early summer-like weather last week. Seoul recorded over 31 degrees Celsius last Tuesday, surpassing the 30-degree mark a week earlier than last year. In other news, South Korea battled to a 2-2 draw against Honduras at the FIFA U-20 World Cup in Argentina on Thursday, with hopes of advancing to the round of 16 remaining high. They recovered from being 2 goals down after 51 minutes, with Kim Yong-hak and Park Seung-ho finding the net in the second half to clinch a point. South Korea opened its campaign by beating France 2-1 earlier this week, and now sit in the second place in Group F with 4 points. The young Taeguk Warriors' next match will see them take on top of the table Gambia on Sunday at 6 p.m. with a draw enough to see them into the next round.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. We begin in Guam, where thousands of travelers have been stranded after a Category 4 typhoon struck the U.S. island territory. Flights to and from Guam have been cancelled in the wake of Typhoon Mawa's arrival, as its international airport has been flooded. At least 3,000 South Korean tourists are currently unable to return home. Making landfall on Wednesday local time, the typhoon brought rain, 9-meter-high waves, and winds of up to 225 kilometers per hour. The storm overturned cars, ripped off roofs, and left tens of thousands of homes without power. It is the first Category 4 typhoon to hit Guam in 20 years. The storm is now headed toward the Philippines and has grown into a Category 5 storm. Moving on to South Africa, where a fugitive on the run for over 20 years for his alleged role in the 1994 Rwandan genocide has been arrested. According to United Nations prosecutors, Fulgence Kayashima was apprehended in the town of Paarl on Wednesday local time. He will be extradited to Rwanda, where he will face trial. In 2001, Kayashima fled the country after he was charged for planning and carrying out the killing of over 2,000 ethnic Tutsis, hiding inside a Catholic church. It's said that he and others first tried to burn the church with the people inside. They then reportedly bulldozed it when the church failed to catch fire and buried the bodies in mass graves. The 1994 Rwanda genocide occurred during the civil war in the country and saw around 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus killed by armed Hutu militias. Turning over to the United States, the founder of the Oath Keepers militia group has been sentenced to 18 years in prison. This for his role in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol in 2021, meant to stop the presidential transfer of power after former U.S. President Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. Stuart Rhodes was handed the sentence on Thursday in a Washington federal court after being found guilty of seditious conspiracy. The charges included his recruitment of new members and the collection of weapons at a nearby hotel during the attack to arm a so-called quick reaction force. And finally, a Nepalese Sherpa has scaled the world's tallest mountain for a record 28th time. 53-year-old Kami Rita was given a hero's welcome in the Nepalese capital of Kathmandu on Thursday after successfully scaling the mountain summit on Tuesday. It was his second climb up the 8,849-meter tall mountain in just a week. Rita first climbed Mount Everest in 1994 and has climbed almost every year since. This comes just a week after a new record for the most ascents by a foreigner was set at 17 by British climber Kenton Cool. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It has been a sunny week, and now we have frequent rain in the forecast through the holiday weekend. Passing rain is in the forecast from this afternoon into the evening, along with thunder and lightning. But the rest of the country is under lots of clouds, and top temperatures are similar to just a few notches lower than yesterday. Air quality will be normal to good nationwide all day today. Now, we had a wet Children's Day weekend 3 weeks ago, and I hate to disappoint you, but this upcoming 3-day weekend, Saturday marking Buddha's birthday, looks to be a rainy one as well. On Sunday, it looks like heavy rain in central regions, and it will pour down in the south on Monday, which is a substitute holiday. Take the weather into account if you are planning outdoor activities. Now, that rain continues in the south until next Tuesday, but the sunshine returns to the central regions with warmer temperatures. Now, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That is all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 2 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.